The Saskatchewan Party's recent throne speech included new measures for getting tough on drugs and supporting people battling addictions. They've called it the Compassionate Intervention Act. According to the government, it will require individuals whose addictions are posing a threat to themselves and or others to get the care that they need. For more on this, we are joined by the Minister for Mental Health and Addictions, Carr. Welcome to Blue Sky, Minister Carr.
Well, thank you for having me.
So my first question is, why now?
Well, I think it's clear as we're watching individuals struggle throughout our communities that even though we're building out spaces in the voluntary realm, detox, inpatient spaces, post-treatment spaces through our recovery-oriented system of care, there is still a segment of the population that are falling through the cracks that really truly don't have the ability to, I guess, make a decision to decide to get treatment on their own. So we're looking at this as, I guess, another tool in our toolbox to really be able to help those people try to get into a life of recovery.
Why this way? We know people have been asking for more support for addiction for years. Why the forced route?
Well, I think we have our Mental Health and Addictions Action Plan, which was rolled out in 2023, and that is a 5-year plan. So we're about halfway through that right now. And part of that plan was to add 500 additional spaces to the system. And we are at just about 300 of those 500, fully expecting to get to 500 sooner than later. So we're adding those spaces and trying to ensure that we do have those voluntary places available for individuals. The beds that we're talking about, the spaces that we're talking about for involuntary care will be over and above. It'll be outside that realm. So it's not going to take a voluntary space away from anybody. But now, because we're watching people struggle on the streets, and if it was, your mom or your sister or my dad, and there was nothing I could do to help them, I've got them into voluntary treatment, but they leave because they have the ability to do that. They're not there long enough to decide to change their mindset and actually get the help that will help them get into a life of recovery. So now, because we need that extra tool to help those individuals, we walk by them every day as we're out in our communities.
Who did you consult, or what research did you look at before making this decision?
I have been out since session ended. I have taken, I don't even know how many meetings with community leaders, whether that be municipal, whether that be Indigenous leaders. I've talked to people that work in recovery centers. I've talked to people who are in recovery. I've talked to people with addictions. Really, the whole realm of the people that you see out there. Probably the most touching stories I speak to is people who have lost a loved one, a mom who has got their son into treatment to just eventually find them on the street dead.
I know we don't have a lot of the details yet. Those are still to come. But at this point, how do you envision this working? Is it short-term treatment? Is it long-term treatment? How long will people be involuntary under this order for if they get taken in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, right now, through the recovery-oriented system of care, it's not the traditional 28-day bed any longer. The drugs that people are using are much more lasting on them, have a much greater impact, and each person is individual. So even right now in our voluntary beds, there is no set time frame on the person is there. The plan is individualized to the person. So it'll be no different in these involuntary spaces. Of course, the whole goal, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, is having the ability for these individuals to be able to go on and lead lives in a life of recovery. So once they do get out of a treatment space, having those post-treatment spaces or sober living spaces available for them to be able to be surrounded by some wraparound, some supports, maybe other individuals who have walked the same path of them, people who can support them so that as they get into, I guess we'll call it regular life again, getting a job, renting their own apartment, that they have those supports around them and hopefully not falling back into the life that they lived previously. This is truly about, making our community safer, making that person feel a lot more secure in who they are and the life that they can live. And when we talk about family, that's what we want for our families, whether it's a blood relative or whether it's a friend that is so close to you, that's what we're looking at.
Minister Carr, some of the people I've spoken with over the last number of days since the throne speech are concerned about concurrent disorders. A lot of people who struggle with addiction may have bipolar disorder. They may be depressed. They may have PTSD. They may be schizophrenic. What about those other disorders? If you're going in for involuntary treatment, will there be treatment for that as well?
Yeah, that's another really good question. And yeah, the answer is yes. Because we do know that oftentimes when people have fallen into a life of addiction, there is a reason for that, whether it be an underlying mental health condition or trauma that they've been through. So there will be professionals within these facilities that will work with individuals to work on the whole person.
Why not invest more in harm reduction instead of coming at it from the back end when people are already addicted?
Well, I mean, I guess we feel very strongly about recovery. And for someone to recover from something, providing someone with the tools to do more illicit drugs, in our view, is not a solution. So we're going to fund getting them into treatment and getting the tools in place for recovery to help them live clean and sober lives.
But if you could prevent the addiction in the first place, or do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you could reduce the harm to that severe addiction to the point that they're not in need of involuntary care, wouldn't that be more helpful to some of these people to give them that choice?
Well, I guess I'm not sure what your definition of harm reduction is, but providing the tools for someone to continue to do illicit drugs is not harm reduction.
I read that service providers will bid on contracts to supply staff and resources for these programs. What if the providers don't come through? I mean, we already have a shortage of beds in the province for people who are voluntary. So what would happen if these providers don't come through?
Well, I mean, obviously, as like with any contract that we have with the voluntary spaces that we have in place right now, there is a set of standards that providers, just to get into the system, have to follow. And we expect them to continue on with the treatment as expected. And it would be no different in a space like this.
Who pays for involuntary treatment? Because in the case of some of these other treatment centers, the patients are paying for it themselves or their family members are paying for it. But if you're taking someone into involuntary treatment, they don't want it. So who pays for that?
Any of the spaces that I'm talking about, I talk about building out 500 more spaces for individuals. Those are all paid for by the government of Saskatchewan. So we are not telling someone that they have to go to treatment and they have to pay for it.
How many beds are you hoping to achieve with this involuntary treatment or the Compassionate Care Act?
With the Compassionate Intervention Act, we don't have a set number of beds at this point in time. Once the legislation is introduced, of course, I'm looking forward to hearing back from individuals on what they see in there, how they feel about it. And then from there, we'll determine, what does that need to look like? Obviously, we'll start out on a small scale, see how that works, and then build from there.
I know that you talk to a lot of community members and leaders, but did you talk to any doctors? Because I'm aware of what happened at the Sask Medical Association. Some doctors are really unhappy about this. Have you spoken with medical professionals about the potential for this?
I have spoken to many medical professionals about this. In fact, when we were at our meetings in Alberta here last month, we actually had a presentation from a panel of doctors from all provinces talking to us about this and explaining why this is an important piece of the puzzle for that very small percentage of the population that truly doesn't have the ability to make the decision on their own. And I've even talked to doctors in Saskatchewan. Of course, we will have a doctor lead on the project. So, yeah. And I know not everybody is going to agree with this. We all have different opinions, but doing nothing at this point in time, walking past that individual every day, it gets disheartening. So we have to try something for them.
2 quick questions left for you. First one, when this goes through, how long until we see this in action? What's the hope for this up and running?
Well, obviously, we want to get it up and running as soon as possible, but we don't have a time frame for that right now at this point in time.
And what is the long-term strategy or goal here? What is your hope with creating this act?
With creating this act, our goal is truly to help people live more secure lives in recovery, getting those individuals the help that they need, getting them back with their families, getting them back into their communities so that they don't have to struggle on a day-to-day basis.
Minister Carr, thanks so much for making some time for us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.